So, experience of a being awareness, meditation, just resting in the stillness that's underneath all the becoming and begoing that occurs, all the movement that occurs, and just letting things be as they are. That's the being awareness meditation. So we've explored awareness of breath meditation. We've explored choiceless awareness meditation over the last two sessions, and in the past we've explored loving kindness meditation, compassion meditation, and the Brahma Vihara practices, as well as some Lojong practices, walking meditation, some body scan meditation. So we've done a lot of different methods. And this method is really one of letting go of technique and method, and just letting things be as they are. Sometimes the Tibetans call it non-meditation. Zen, they call it just sitting. Lama Suryadas, Dzogchen Tibetan tradition calls it stargazing. So it's got a bunch of different names, but it's a profound practice, and it allows us to let go of any struggle. So notice if there is any struggle with the mind when you're doing these other, awareness of breath or choiceless awareness. Is there any struggle going on with the mind? Sense that the mind should be quiet, or is there a subtle belief that you should be in control of the meditation, or that you should feel a certain way when you're meditating? You should feel calm, or the mind should be quiet. Noticing if there's any of those beliefs present. For years I practiced, and it's on the surface it seemed like I was letting things be, but I was subtly controlling and wanting in the meditation. Unbeknownst to me, of course. I thought I was doing the technique and the methods as I was being instructed, but there's this attitude, a subtle sense of trying to control, wanting something in particular to happen. Matthew Flickstein suggested to me probably 15 years ago that I should lighten up and relax into my meditations, and really emphasize this approach of this attitude of allowing things to be as they are. So I began to kind of let go of the preconceived notions that I had about what meditation was supposed to look like, or what I was supposed to be doing as the meditator. I mean, my mind was full of ideas about meditation, how it should be done, and I asked a lot of how questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And the mind really wanted to know, how to do it right. And I thought I wasn't sort of reaching sort of the desired states. There was the desired states because I wasn't applying the methods and the technique properly. So I would kind of try a little harder to do it right. And really letting go of these ideas really opened up a whole new realm of meditation for me. It was, as they say, a game changer. So I went from trying to perfect technique or method to actually letting my experience be. So kind of letting go of technique and method. Now we have, all of us have, ideas about how we should meditate. And these are affected by our past conditioning, our experience, our exposure to teachers, our life experience, even our genetics. um, and people come to meditation for many different reasons. Some people come to meditation for health reasons or to settle their minds, or some people might want to open the energy channels in their bodies. Some people want to enhance the compassion and loving kindness that they experience, or perhaps they want, uh, transcendental, transient, transcendent, I should say, transient too. um, a bit of a slip there, but true. Transient, transcendent states of mind. Some people may um, be interested in that. And finally, there's a meditation that's more about awakening to our true selves, and that's what I talk about here in this group the most. I mean, we have talked about the other aspects in cultivating compassion, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And we've talked about how, there's health benefits to responding to situations in life rather than automatically, reacting, being in a reactive state. So we've talked about all that, but ultimately we come back to this sense of awakening to our true nature. So this awakening is about coming home to our natural state. The quote here. So another teacher that's really helped me along in this meditation, this way of being with meditation, is Ajahn Shanti, who I've mentioned before. There's a quote from Ajahn. What if you let go of every bit of control and every urge that you have, right down to the most infinitesimal urge to control anything, anywhere, including anything that may be happening with you at this moment? If you're able to give up control absolutely, totally, and completely, then you would be a spiritually free being. Giving up control absolutely and completely. And the more you kind of play around with this, the more you get the idea that connecting with our natural state can never be achieved by trying to control our experiences, or control the mind, control what's arising. And you hear that, you think about it, how could we possibly think we could get to our natural state by trying to control? So a natural state, by definition, means a state that is not contrived, or a state that requires some technique to maintain or to cultivate. So perhaps trying to control our meditation could be the number one reason that people meditate for years and feel that they um, don't get any closer to a spiritual awakening. Now, this is not to say, don't get me wrong on this. I'm not saying that all traditional meditation techniques and methods have no value or there's no place for them. They have great value for our practice, but they can become kind of an end rather than a means in our practice. So to be very aware of our relationship to those traditional practices, awareness of breath and choiceless awareness practices. They don't become an end in themselves. Recognizing that there are means. Of course, this being awareness meditation, you're embodying the end in a sense. It's not so much a means to an end. It is resting in that, in your true nature. Resting in that to which one has a deep aspiration to awaken to. So I would recommend that you could start with the techniques that you're familiar with. We started the guided meditation with awareness of the body, a bit of a body scan, noticing where there's what's present in the body, and not trying to change, but just allowing the body to settle. Perhaps noticing how that just bringing awareness to the body allows it to settle. We brought attention to the breath in the lower belly to begin our practice. So I recommend you start with those kinds of techniques that you're familiar with, and then at some point transition to a being awareness practice that has no goal or method. So what does this being awareness meditation or non-meditation look like on the ground? How do we actually do it? So first of all, we remember that we're not trying to create or move toward our natural state. It's always present. It's always there. It's ever present. It's the stillness. The stillness that's behind all the movement. It's the stillness or the quiet that's behind the world of form, where something's always happening. So behind all this movement and all this stuff happening, this constant flux and flow of movement that we call life is this stillness. So the practice is to sense into, subjectively, intuitively feel into that ever-present quiet. So it's not of the mind. It's very much a felt sense. And when we sit with this kind of practice, the most obvious thing that we become aware of is that a lot of stuff is happening when we sit and meditate. A lot of stuff's going on. It's the world of form, the world of constant movement, always becoming and begoing, um, toing and froing. And that's the basic aliveness that you feel right now. That aliveness you feel in this moment is actually that experience of movement, of change. That's life. That's the aliveness that we feel. Without it, there would be no life, no manifestation of life. It's impermanent. It's constantly changing. And if we try to control this constant movement, well, you know what that feels like. When you try to control, we struggle and we suffer. And that's the arising of dukkha. So if we imagine we can kind of steer the world of life, we suffer because it's going to go where it wants to go. It's going to go where it wants to go. So we suffer if we struggle against it and try and control it. In this practice, we're seeing what it's like to just allow it to be. We're in the passenger seat and we've let go of the steering wheel. If that steering metaphor works, with this meditation, you're in the passenger seat and you're not sort of reaching over and hanging onto that steering wheel. You're just a passenger and letting everything flow and letting everything be. And you're sensing into the stillness within the movement, the stillness, the quiet within the movement, underpinning the movement. Could be another way to put it. So the change doesn't stop. The movement doesn't stop. It might settle, if you sit especially if you're on a retreat, you're sitting, hours or days, weeks, months. The movement may settle, but for the most part, the change doesn't. The movement's not. It's not stopping at any rate. There's always movement. Another way to sense into the stillness is the experience of non-resistance. When we're not resisting, we're not struggling with this movement. That's letting things be, letting go of struggle. We can sense into the quiet, the stillness. The more we struggle, the more we grasp, the more we resist, the more we feel the movement. When there's no resistance, there's no real feeling of movement. It's still occurring, but there's no real feeling of it. It's kind of like you're in a vacuum tunnel and you're flying along it in a vacuum tunnel, moving, but there's no particles that you're resisting, that you're flowing through. So it wouldn't feel like there's any movement at all. Without any particles to resist your movement, there would be no particles to resist. There would be no feeling of movement. The kind of one of the core attitudes for me that I bring to this practice is curiosity. I guess, trust and curiosity. Um, Curious about what is this natural state.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens if I don't do anything? What happens if I don't do anything? If I just let things be? Seeing into that world of the formless, in a sense, the world where nothing ever happens. When I actually heard, when I first heard that phrase, the space where nothing ever happens, the Talking Heads song. I don't know if you're from the old 80s tune. David Byrne, I think, wrote it. Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. It's beautiful, and yeah, it's an interesting song that ultimately is about awakening. I won't sing it for you, although I am right now singing it in my head. It's a catchy tune. So sensing into that sense of stillness, a sense of peace, a sense of spaciousness, more space within which the movement is occurring, a lighter sense. I think when Matthew said to lighten up, it was that meant more than, because the whole sense of the practice is a lightness. Kind of if you go, you breathe out and you go, ah, just try that. Ah. When the breath runs out, it kind of feels like that place. Ah, is this stillness, quiet, peace. So when we sit to sit to practice and simply allow things to be as they are, we see that we're starting from our natural state. That the peace and stillness is always already there. It's always there. We just have to get out of the way, stop trying to reach it. It's there. So you've heard me in this group say you're already enlightened. It's obscured. Well, that's what it's pointing to, that stillness, that awareness, that consciousness, spirit, grace, divine, whatever name we want to give it, it's always there. We just have to get out of the way, stop trying so hard to reach it. So when we get out of the way to change our experience, an underlying kind of natural state of being starts to rise into consciousness. So there's very little effort here. We spoke about effort. You could say no effort. Sometimes people call it effortless effort. We've talked about a balance, having a balance, that it's a subtle art, getting the right amount of effort. With this practice, you kind of, you would say it's more of no effort, just getting out of the way. I mean, there's a certain effort that comes into, especially at the beginning of a practice, to drawing attention. You're drawing attention to the breath. So there's that kind of effort as we begin the practice. But when we're into being awareness, we can let go of any sense of needing to do anything. course, if the mind starts, chattering away and you get lost in thought, then, as I think I said in the guided meditation, you can re-engage the meditator. You can bring some effort to the fore and bring attention back to the breath, kind of collect yourself, and then again, let go of the meditator, let go of the effort, and rest in the natural state. So we're letting go. We're in this practice, this awakening. We're moving beyond our egoic identities. We're moving beyond identification with the mind, and we cannot move beyond this egoic identity or mind by using the mind to control our experience or our state of being. Consciousness must be freed to wake up. To wake up from its identification with body, thoughts, feelings, personality, by allowing ourselves to rest in this natural state. And we can, with this practice, we can start to see our self-concept start to dissolve. We can start to see that it's all in the mind. The self-concept is all in the mind. Because when the idea of ourselves isn't present, our natural state is felt. So to find a self, we have to go back to the mind. To find time, we have to go back to the mind. So I'll say again, we're not going to get this with intellectual comprehension, with ideas and concepts. That's the mind simply trying to stay in control. The mind likes to stay in control, even trying to be out of control, to not be in control. The mind's going to go, how can I not be in control? What do I need to do to let go of control? The mind, just like the mind, we say, it's kind of that state of not knowing, or the unknowing state. The mind will go, well, what do I need to know in order to know the unknown? How do I get there? So just see that for what it is. It's the mind exerting its control, trying to maintain control. And this needs to be let go as well. Let go. And again, I've said this before, it does not mean we do not use the mind in this practice. The mind actually plays a central role. It's especially in the process of investigation and inquiry. It's not the mind that's the problem. It's our attachment, our identification with the mind that creates a sense of self and suffering. So again, the mind's not the problem. It's our identification with the mind. So the mind plays a central role. At the end of the guided meditation, we kind of, we mentioned acknowledging the constant flow of change, impermanence, acknowledging this, how everything automatically and spontaneously arises, recognizing that, acknowledging how when we struggle against what is, that we feel a sense of unease and suffering. So those are, those are kind of the three main areas that we in this practice investigate our experience to see if dukkha, anicca, and anatta are true. So that the mind plays a central role in that that inquiry, that investigation. So we let in the natural state, allowing the natural state, resting in our natural state, or just being. We let go of everything. Our preconceived notions of what meditation is, any control, and most of our effort. Ajahn Shanti would say, effortless effort. So it's kind of almost like saying most of our effort. It's kind of efforts. We had a talk on effort. I don't know 4 weeks ago or something. So it's a whole topic unto itself. It's central in the teachings of the Buddha. On so many of his lists, you see this word effort. So we simply, in this practice, rest in open receptivity. That retreat I did a couple weeks ago with Carol Wilson, she used that phrase quite often, resting in receptive to whatever's arising. That word receptive. So you're just kind of receiving, kind of like the in-breath. It's receiving. And when we notice that we're getting involved in manipulation or control, we simply notice it and let that go. It's going to happen. The mind's going to assert itself. We simply notice it and let it go. It's not a problem. It's just what's happening. So this awareness will move around. Sometimes it'll rest in itself, and for no reason it'll spontaneously become interested in a sound, perhaps a bird's chirping, and then it may rest in itself again, or maybe a thought will arise about the bird chirping, and then back to resting in itself again. And when it's kind of left to its own devices, it'll have its kind of natural flow and rhythm. It's how emptiness moves. This kind of natural flow. So we're just letting the awareness have its own natural flow without us needing to be in control. The mind needing to be in control. So that's our true nature. We're touching into our true nature, beyond thought, beyond self-image. It's what exists when we let go of self-image and the idea of our self. We let go of struggle. And we feel struggle. We feel struggle quite often in our lives and in our meditations. Some sense of conflict or struggle. Because we're kind of struggling with against what's naturally trying to flow and express. So we just do this practice over extended periods of time, you start to really see that kind of our normal state of being is one of an egoic state of constant struggle and conflict with what is. You can really see that when you sit and do this meditation. You start to just see how much, and peel back the layers of how subtle it can also be. We can feel this in our body as a contraction, perhaps in our stomachs, our hearts, or our heads. So there was a question asked last session, like, so why do we do this if it creates so much suffering? It's a good question. Why do we live in this state? This, I've been calling it egoic state as opposed to natural. If it causes so much suffering, and we seem to be wired in this way, in a way that results in suffering. And we've touched upon this here and there. I often quote Rick Hansen and some of the work he's done around sort of how we're wired and the evolution of our brains, and how the fact that we're here means our ancestors were really good at categorizing and separating things and approaching opportunities and avoiding threats and so on and so forth. So we're kind of wired in this way. And he shows in the book Practical Neuroscience of the Buddha's Brain, I think the book is called, that those strategies are very effective for survival, but they make us suffer. So this practice is really seeing beyond that, or dropping the veil. We can noticing this suffering, so we can notice our experience in our meditation, in our daily lives. We can see that when there's this struggle with what is, there's no peace. There's this contraction, this stress, this dukkha. But even when the mind's confused or agitated, behind this grand display, there is peace, because it's ever present. There's stillness. Even when the mind's agitated, there's strong emotion, whatever it might be, anger, impatience. Natural state is always present. The stillness and quiet is always there. You can touch into it. That's why in this practice, if you ever hear a talk or do a session on how to relate to strong emotions or difficult emotions, the practice generally has a focus on bringing awareness to the body and seeing where that emotion is manifesting in the body. And this is putting us in touch, is embodying us, putting us in touch with the present moment, and putting us in touch with this quiet and stillness that's always there. So it's always there if you can just touch into it. Don't need to change anything. One of the big dreams of the mind is that we need to change something within ourselves to find peace. You just need to let go. Like Ajahn Chah says, Let go a little, there's a little piece. Let go a lot, there's a lot of peace. Let go completely, as Adyashanti was seeing, and there's absolute peace. Completely let go of any infinitesimal idea of control. So how'd you put it? The most infinitesimal urge to control anything. So there's no argument with anything. There's a sense of not knowing. Being in the natural state is allowing yourself to go internally into a sense of not knowing. We've got a quote here from St. John of the Cross. Excuse me. Verses on the ecstasy of deep contemplation by St. John of the Cross. I entered where there is no knowing, and unknowing I remained, all knowledge there transcending. Where no knowing is I entered, yet when I my own self saw there without knowing, where I rested, great things I understood there. Yet cannot say what I felt there, since I rested in unknowing. All knowledge there transcending. It is such true excellence, this highest understanding, no science, no human sense has in its grasping. Yet he who by self-conquering is knowing in the unknowing goes ever more transcending. So it's just as a tangent, it's not only teach people following the teachings of the Buddha that involve themselves in this. As a Christian meditator, and there's many others who have similar experience with this, and in every spiritual tradition as well. I have another quote here. I'm going to share the screen, put up the quote from Ajahn with a picture. Let's see if that works. Can folks see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The unknown, our own true nature, has the capacity to wake itself up when you start to fall in love with letting go of all mental structures you hold on to. Contemplate this. There's no such thing as a true belief. Fall in love with letting go. Another one here from Pema Chodron. Our true nature is like a precious jewel. Although it may be temporarily buried in mud, it remains completely brilliant and unaffected. We simply have to uncover it. Of course, Pema in the Tibetan tradition. So I'll wrap up here. So I'll just end by saying that the mind is going to resist this. Just so it's so simple, right? There's such a simpleness to it. just letting go of wanting anything to be different, letting go of any, so on and so forth. But the mind's going to resist this letting go. It's going to think that everything's going to fall apart if it's not in control. Like if you took your hands off the steering wheel, the car's just going to go wildly out of control and smash into things. This is literally how the mind views this. So it's going to resist. So if you can let go even for a moment, the mind can see that no, it won't. Everything won't fall apart, and the mind can slowly get the sense that everything will be okay if you simply let go. So I'll end it there and open it up for some. I'll unmute and open it up for some questions. So everybody's unmuted. I guess I could have just let you unmute yourselves, but it's nice to hear everybody's dogs bark and so on and so forth. Yeah. So any questions? Oh, people are raising their hands.
I have a couple.
We just go like this when we want to ask a question. When we
do raise hand, yeah.
And then go like this when we finish. So that going like this is kind of like raising your hand. Yeah. So go ahead, Jill. If that's
is that okay?
Yeah.
My internet connection is really bad, so you might not be able to hear me. Okay, a couple questions. So no, I'll just ask one. We know the world through sense objects and the sense doors, right? And that contact. So how is, this state of awareness known other than, like, it seems like we're calling it something other than our sense door knowing. I think my video is frozen.
No, I can see you fine. Yeah, I can.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So you want me to? I can answer. Yeah. So we go like this when we finish as well. We have a few of these little protocol things, which actually work quite well on Zoom. So
okay.
So yeah, all this movement, which you're calling sense experience, this constant ebb and flow of experience, the contact that occurs, at the sense door, sense consciousness, sense object, sense organ, contact. You have experience, rising a feeling tone. So that all that sense contact that happens is simply form. It's a manifestation of form. So it's not separate from, there's the quote that, form is formlessness and formlessness is form. So they're not separate in any way. And we're not trying to transcend our direct experience in any way either. It's very much, it's life manifesting. It's consciousness manifesting as life, or awareness manifesting as life. And of course you can, last week we practiced with a choiceless awareness, which is really becoming aware of all the sense contact as it's occurring, thinking, hearing, and body sensations and so on, and bringing awareness to that. So this is just a little bit different in that we're letting all that be, which really sort of the latest instruction that we hear in Vipassana circles is, Sayadaw Tanjaniya, who talks about, relaxing into awareness. He's more the Burmese teachers, that come down through the Mahasi Sayadaw lineage are more and more talking about this aspect of resting in awareness, of being, and letting go of any control over the practice. And yes, well, all that, to answer your question, all that still goes on. We're not trying to, change anything that's occurring. We're simply trying to see that, to get in touch with our true nature, which is beyond mind and beyond all the sense doors and the sense contact. I think I'm going to mute folks, and then you can unmute yourself when you want to, because there's a lot of stuff happening. Is that okay? Yeah.
So when you're talking about, I guess the being and the awareness that underlies everything that happens, all the sense experiences and the things that happen and the thoughts, and we're just supposed to tap into our. So I felt, I heard that we're supposed to tap into the sort of sense of knowing and our true selves. Then my mind went forward to, one of the worst ways I get in my own way is at work, when I'm really trying. I've learned things and I'm trying to do the right thing and I'm trying to navigate and work with people. And I'm trying to reconcile that with being my true self and sort of, you talked about not overthinking things or getting in our own way, and where the mind is always trying to fix things and figure things out. Well, what do we do in the context of where we're supposed to be thinking and figuring things out, like at work, when we do get stressed out, or we do, we're trying but things aren't working, or we're trying to satisfy someone and they're not satisfied, or manager or whatever? It's kind of a pragmatic question, but how do we navigate that using this sort of, what you're suggesting, and still connect with our true selves? And not overthink it.
This practice is very practical. All these, it's very practical. So we use our minds. We use our minds in so many ways to navigate a form. We use our mind in this practice, as I pointed to in the talk, in terms of investigation or inquiry. So these are the practical applications of mind, of thinking that we engage in, and we're conscious when we're doing it. And that may be 5% of our mind's activity. If you really look, how much of the mind's activity is practical, useful, helpful activity, and how much is just creating suffering? It's just blabbering. I would say it's 95% blabbering and 5% practical, useful. I haven't read any studies, but well, there have been a few where they show similar, 80, 90%. So there have been some studies in that regard. So yeah, so practical planning. You sit down, you're going to plan something. You're conscious that you're planning. The planning is over. And you can notice if there's no contraction in the body, and while you're thinking, it's likelihood is that there's some, a practical mind activity going on. It's the other 95% that we really need to just, let it flow, let it go, let it be, not believe. It's the stories, the papancha, that proliferation of stories that then lead to emotions, mood shifts, and so on. Reactivity, to reactivity, very much so, to dukkha. So yeah, the mind, that's how our relationship to the mind can evolve with this practice. If we're so go back to Ajahn Chah. We can let go a little or let go a lot and get a little piece or a lot of peace, right? So when he's talking about let going completely, he's talking about awakening. So really knowing in your bones that you're not, this, the self-concept that you have of yourself is a dream, and that you're much bigger than that in terms of your true nature. In terms of how you apply this in your everyday world, I would say just, you're being conscious in your moments. So noticing if the boss or a coworker triggers you, right? So you notice that. So they've triggered something. Family members, people that know our buttons can actually trigger us more easily than strangers, much more easily. So being aware of that really helps in terms of being able to navigate that and respond rather than react. And and then if sometimes we react anyway, right? we're not always conscious. We react. With this practice, we can begin again. You can go, oh wow, that's what reactivity feels like. That's suffering. This is what we learn, and then perhaps next time we'll be less likely to react. Yeah. Try it with, somebody starts personally getting personal on their feedback as opposed to helpful. And is it really trying to trigger you? Try saying, well, that's very interesting, so can you say a bit more about that? Because what they want is a reaction. They want fireworks out of you. And and that's the dance that perhaps is going on. So when they don't get that, perhaps it may shift things over time. So yeah, just being present, allowing, and responding, remembering as much as we can to respond rather than react.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
Um, I'm not sure I quite understand how using natural awareness through our day is any different than practicing mindfulness through our day.
Yeah, we don't really use natural natural awareness is who we are. So it's not like it's something we can use during our day. I was pointing down. I was pointing to more to the mindfulness aspects of this practice in answering the last question, because touching into our natural awareness, our true is just it's a practice of awakening. It's not if we think there's a benefit to us in it, then automatically the mind is in the way. So yeah, if that's, I said at the very beginning, people come to this practice for different reasons. We tend to talk more around the idea of awakening. And I didn't always do that. This group's been going for over 10 years, I think. When I first started, I just spoke about mindfulness and the kind of the health aspects of mindfulness. We had 40, 50 people. We're very interested in that aspect of the practice. When you start talking about awakening, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's really what the practice we did earlier, the guided meditation, is a practice in awakening to our true nature. And that that can cause a huge disturbance. Yeah, it's something it can throw people's lives, how they've been living their life, on its head in some ways. And in other ways, it's just beauty manifesting, love manifesting.
Stephen, I've really been enjoying these guided meditations, and especially tonight, I found it very profound. I'm still working on reconciling these notions, on the one hand, of letting go and not controlling, and effort, because it feels for me when I'm practicing, there's almost a constant effort. I sort of settle into being. It might last 2 or 3 seconds, but then at most, and then there's sort of a thought, and then it's I have to think, okay, just notice the thought, don't go with the story. And then, there's an emotion that comes up, and then it's like, maybe label it or notice it in the body, just let it dissipate. But there's that constant effort to sort of apply these kind of principles, and there's a certain discipline, and it kind of feels like I'm trying to control, even if it's kind of a gentle and compassionate control, but it feels like the only way I can stay with this practice is to keep a certain control. There do seem to be little glimpses, as I said, that maybe at most it might last 2 or 3 seconds where I just sort of have that sense of being, but then something comes up. So I'm just wondering, is that just a matter of practice over time, that you can sort of lengthen those little spaces, or do you really need that discipline and an effort most of the time, really, anyways? I don't know.
So effortless effort, that sense of there's no selfless effort. So there's nobody efforting. but effort is occurring. So that you're not trying to control effort, you're not trying to control what's arising, but there is effort is occurring. So it's the natural flow of awareness. Awareness wants to be, consciousness wants to be aware. It's kind of this, the reason people come to these kinds of things is there's this yearning. Consciousness has this yearning to be, to spring, to know itself. So that effort can just be there. I would say, like Matthew told me, to lighten up, to lighten up a bit. There's going to be movement. So thoughts, sounds, body sensations, this constant movement activity of form. So, it's just being okay with all that. So we're not resisting and we're not pursuing. So when I say getting lost in thought, that means, you've kind of pursued a train of thought. So in that case, we come back to the present. So that in a sense, you're re-engaging the meditator. So now you're doing a little more than effortless effort. You're, bringing in some wise or gentle effort. You're re-engaging the meditator and then expanding back out. Now, Ajahn, sometimes he goes from resting in awareness to the breath when the mind gets lost. But sometimes he goes from resting in awareness, the mind gets lost, he goes back to resting in awareness. Especially later in retreats. So there's no re-engaging of the meditator, there's no re-engaging of any kind of control. It's just, oh, look, the thought was pursued, I got lost, come back to the stillness. And there is the more, there is a time element to it in the sense that, if you sit for extended periods, people that have practiced for even day retreats, things do settle and calm down a bit. But being okay with the movement, that's life. That's your life. That's, without it, there would be no life. That's consciousness manifesting as life is all this movement. The stillness is there, but it's manifesting as form in all this movement. So just being okay with that. So I would say, well, I know you to a degree, so I know your mind a little bit. So I would safely say this. I would say let go of any effort, let go of any sense of control, and just be okay with whatever's arising. Any infinitesimal urge to control anything, let it go. That would be, I would play around with that, see what happens.
Can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't do the bowing thing. My camera broke
Okay.
a long time ago. It's a long story, but I have to get a camera. Anyway, okay, so this I don't know if this is kind of like my other questions in the past, where like basically there's letting go, and then you can't like, if you were to completely let go, why would you even meditate? I mean, you might let go of meditating. And then of course, what about in real life where you have like safety, like a driving, that's a good example. Because if you let go of the steering wheel, your car will crash in the ditch, and that's not fun. So, and I guess so I guess my question is, what's the scope of letting go? Is that only for meditation, or is that for everything else in life? I'm just going to keep my question at that.
Okay. No, don't let go of the steering wheel. It could get really messy. Be suffering for sure. So that was a metaphor, but we in daily life can also let go of wanting things to be different than they are. Yeah, we can let go into wanting things to be different, letting go of the struggle with what is. Because once you're aware of what is, it's already happened. So you're really resisting history. You're not resisting the present moment. Once you're aware of it, it's the past. So you're resisting what's happening. What by allowing whatever is to just be, what it does is it allows you to remain balanced and equanimous in that moment, which then opens up all kinds of options to proceed. All kinds of options arise out of that stillness that wouldn't be there if you were struggling with it. We sometimes call it choices. I just like to say that it's options arising out of stillness. And then one option arises as the one that's spontaneously arises as the one that will be enacted. But yeah, this is a daily practice as well as a meditation practice. Very much so. And you can really play with it to see how it can shift how you relate to experiences and events in your life. You have to see for yourself. I can tell you, it's you're going to and of course mindfulness-based interventions will say you'll be more likely to respond rather than react if you're mindful moment to moment, so on and so forth. And acceptance is part of the basic mindfulness instructions. Accepting, being non-judgmental about what arises in the present moment. So even at the very basic levels of training in this practice, that aspect is part of the core curriculum. If there is a core curriculum for awakening, I don't know if we can say that, but it seems like we're all here, so there must be. Yeah.
So I'm struck by the contact between the formed and the formless, and it makes me think of a situation where just this past winter I was swimming in the Caribbean, and as you know, the water there is quite salted, and I'm a fairly good swimmer, so I was just floating on my back, but still, while you're floating on your back, and I am very comfortable in the water, there is that struggle between letting go and letting the water, which is quite salted and that will support your weight. And I'm struck by that feeling that I felt physically and mentally the more I worked on letting myself go and being supported by the formlessness of the water, if you understand. So for me right now, that's how I balance the surrender, if you will, between the formed and the formless. And I wish it always worked, because when you have that contact between the formed and the formless, that's the struggle. At least for me, I feel that's where the struggle is. It's where the formed hits the formless. Does that make any sense? Have I hit on anything there?
I think Stephen may be frozen. I don't know.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought. So,
Not a lot of movement. If you thought I was frozen, maybe I'll. Yeah, the relationship that being we're so used to form that when we talk about the formless and the that aspect of it, it can get confusing for the mind. The mind wants to know, right? It's kind of more of a state of not knowing, of surrender. So the metaphor of just giving into, floating. I was watching an episode of The Good Doctor. I don't know if you know that show. It's a guy who's on the autism spectrum who becomes a resident surgeon, and a patient talks about how she got in touch with her identity as somebody with a disability, and she talked about how she floated in water and surrendered to what is. And I thought, whoa, that's very. And of course, the doctor didn't just take what she said and believe it. He got a buddy who lived in a apartment that had a pool, got him to take him to the pool, that's how he spent his evening, going and trying this out, just to experience what the woman said to him. So it's really, seeing for yourself. This is true. Yeah. The mystery of not knowing. Not knowing through the mind. And the mind's I think I said, the mind's going to want to know how to not know. What do I need to do to not know, to know unknowing? So, that's what the mind does. It's the way it is. Okay, well, I'm aware of the time. I could just do this all night, but I know a few people have left already. They leave me little notes in the chat, say, "Oh, I gotta go," which I understand because it's a long time to sit staring at a computer screen. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Again, it's a joy to see you all in this what's going on in the world. It's fantastic that we can come together in this way.